Porsche have just revealed the new Cayenne electric SUV, which form part of their very aggressive EV strategy that they've had for the past few years, starting with the Porsche Taycan and the Macan EV. They've recently gone back on that approach to a more hybrid approach that has a few combustion engine vehicles in their portfolio alongside electric vehicles. For now, this is a bold new future for the Cayenne EV, but we'll likely see probably a refreshed combustion engine Cayenne sitting alongside it in the near future as well. So it's a tech powerhouse, plenty of things to get through. So let's have a look at some of the key details here. Starting off with the power, which is absolutely insane. The base model has about 300 kilowatts in normal driving and 325 kilowatts in launch control, which is nothing to sneeze at. But it's the turbo model, which obviously doesn't have a turbo given it's an EV. This turbo vehicle has 630 kilowatts in normal driving, which is already crazy. Then this goes up to 850 kilowatts in launch control mode, which makes it the most powerful production Porsche ever, I believe. So this is entirely unnecessary for an SUV, but they're trying to push the boundaries here on what a performance EV can look like. It's just going to be brutal in terms of acceleration. We're expecting mid 2-second acceleration for a pretty heavy car. In terms of range, we're looking at around 642 kilometers for the standard car and about 623 kilometers on the turbo car for the WLTP cycle, which is pretty good. It's got rear axle steering and adaptive air suspension. And because of the brutal performance that you've got, especially on the turbo model, it even has direct oil cooling of the rear axle motor. And this technology, Porsche says, has been derived from its motorsport division. So it's obviously required when you have such high-end performance in this vehicle. You need a bit of cooling as well to balance things and make sure it can continue to perform for an extended period of time. We know that Porsche invested a lot in this and made a big deal of it for the Taycan compared to, let's say, a Tesla Model S Plaid, where you can accelerate quickly for the first couple of tries and then that performance tapers off. Whereas with the Taycan, we saw that performance lasts a lot longer, and Porsche will be trying to do a similar thing here with the Cayenne EV. Charging is also very interesting on this car. It's up to 400 kilowatts DC fast charging, 10 to 80% in 15 minutes, but it also introduces a brand new charging method for Porsche. So it's going to have a wireless charging capability. So there'll be a wireless charging pad that you can buy from Porsche, connect to your home, have it laid down in your garage and drive over it and have it wirelessly charged. So you can charge up to 11 kilowatts, which is obviously a lot slower than it would be to directly charge it. But what you're basically paying for here is convenience. Turn off the car at night, put it over the wireless charger, and let it do its thing. And hopefully it's fully charged overnight. And they've built some safety mechanisms here as well. Any animals or anything goes over that electric charger, then it'll automatically stop charging to not fry the animals or objects or whatever it may be, and then restart that wireless charging process as soon as they're off the charger. Inside, we'll have a look at the design of the interior, which unfortunately for a lot of purists is now very screen driven, but there's some new technologies here, such as a flexible OLED display that they're debuting, which could be a gimmick. It could be something that we see in future Porsche vehicles if customers like it. It's an interesting new approach for Porsche. They're just trying to push the boundaries forward with the interior as well. So that's an overview of the vehicle. Let's have a look now at the design of the car. It still very much identifies as a Porsche. I've seen a few comments online saying it looks a lot like electric vehicles from China, but I personally think that this is just Porsche's design language that's been refreshed, taking some inspiration from the Mission X concept. It's just that a lot of these other manufacturers have taken inspiration from Porsche, so it's probably bad for Porsche in that they can't really differentiate as much anymore, given that a lot of others are copying their design language. Unless they go in a completely different direction, they're going to be confused with a lot of these Chinese manufacturers. The rear light bar here looks very much in line with their recent vehicles, from the 911 to the Taycan, as well as the Mission X concept, which we haven't seen a production version of yet, but maybe we'll see that soon. Front end, very typical Porsche. You've got these now iconic 4 LED daytime running lamps that basically identify the vehicle as a Porsche from far away. Simple lower rear dent here. These vents are probably a bit unlike Porsche. They're not very organic in shape. They're a little forced and triangular, which is new for Porsche. I'm not sure if it necessarily looks the best. Normally, you just have simple slots here that are very functional, but they've tried to change it up a little bit here. I'm not sure if they've been super successful on that. I love this little green color that they've got here on the turbo vehicle too. At the back here, you've got what I was saying before with those vertical slats here, which is more typical Porsche. Here you've got basically looks like rear air vents, although I'm not entirely sure that these are functional. They could just be for aesthetic purposes. All the aerodynamics you see here down the bottom of the car, potentially the diffuser, all looks a little bit more functional. Over the side here, you can see they've tried to reduce the visual height of the car. With all electric vehicles on the skateboard platform, the height of the car is naturally increased. They've tried to cut some of that out by blacking out parts, which I think they've been successful at. It doesn't necessarily look too bulky here, which we've seen with some other vehicles. I think of the Audi A6 e-tron, which definitely looks like it's got that exaggerated height compared to a regular sedan, but I think they've done well here, Porsche, and you can see they've extended that into the wheel arches to make it a little bit more cohesive, but otherwise it's a fairly simple side profile, nothing too drastic here. I love these wheels. We've seen this design before in a lot of different Porsches, especially the 911. And you can see here with the turbo, they've got that new turbinite color that they're using across the logos for the car, which look quite nice. So moving on to the base vehicle. Here you've got that more classic slats on the side of the front end, which are more in tune from what we've seen from Porsche in the past. You've got active aero here, which is similar to the turbo as well. So we've seen that on the GTS for the 911, and now they're bringing it onto their other vehicles as well. These wheels, they're quite polished and nice, running on Pirelli P0 tires. Definitely a little bit more tame than the turbo, but still a classic, good-looking car. Nothing too crazy here. I think they've done a good job updating the design compared to the predecessor. On the interior front, this is where things get very interesting. Here you've got a brand new center console setup. You've got this curved OLED display. So this display here is just one piece. We've seen this sort of foldable design before on smartphones like the Samsung Galaxy Fold line of devices. There's a reason for the fold because you can close it in half, have just one screen showing and expand to show a bigger screen. Here, it looks like it's purely for aesthetic reasons. They've tried to base the software around it by splitting it into two halves in terms of what's used. The climate control's basic functions are fairly static and just shown in the bottom half, and then this top half here is a little bit more dynamic depending on what the user wants to use it for. I've seen a couple of videos of it. It has a nice sort of waterfall effect when you scroll past it. I don't know if it's necessarily practical or if it'll be continued to be used, but it's something new that Porsche are trying here. Otherwise, it's a fairly standard interior. Got that classic Porsche steering wheel, the nicely integrated screen in front of the driver. It's not just a tablet stuck on, which I like. It's got a hood over it, which makes it feel a little bit more traditional, like a car. And you've got a driver display as well. As far as integrating screens, I think they've done a good job. It probably is too many screens for me. I think you don't necessarily need a passenger display, and you don't need this foldable, flexible display either. You can see this little pad here. This is used so that it's easy and comfortable to interact with the screen, and it's called the Ferry Pad, named after the legend himself, Ferdinand Porsche. And otherwise, it's a fairly standard interior. You can see it can get fancy with the diffused LED lighting, which I like. You can customize all the screens into as bright colors as you want. So you've got an extremely hot pink here, which definitely stands out. But overall, it's a well-integrated design, even if the number of screens here are a little bit unnecessary. Now looking at some other cars we can compare it to. Here's the predecessor for the Cayenne, which is a combustion engine Cayenne, and they have nicely updated it. You can see the front end here is very similar, perhaps a sleeker design for the headlamps compared to the previous generation, but you can definitely see the family resemblance. And again, very similar. You still have the light bar here, It's just a slightly updated design where you've got the Porsche lettering lit up in red as well. I think it's a nice evolution. They haven't tried to change things too much, which is in line with Porsche design cars, really. We've seen the 911 over the years. And then compared to the Macan EV, again, there's some similarities here with the headlamps, but I think they've done a better job in taking a more traditional SUV design and still preserving the aero with the Cayenne. You can definitely see here it's a very nice traditional style profile. With the Macan EV, I think it was controversial how bluff that rear ended. It just kind of cuts off and there's no real wing here as well. So it feels a little bit incomplete. They've obviously learned from the Macan EV and tried to make it seem a bit more normal in its design. Overall, I would say inside and out, Porsche have done a good job. We'll have to see whether this sells well for them or whether it's a little bit of a flop. The Taycan started off well, but I think sales have declined, and Macan EV is doing okay, but probably not enough for Porsche to go full EV because they are bringing back a next generation version of the Macan as well. So we'll see where Porsche goes with this, but they introduced some exciting new technologies for the brand, which we'll probably see filter down to other models as well. And yeah, it's a brand new era for Porsche.